Good afternoon, class. My name is Akeem Davis, and I'm back with you with another speech. The speech that I'll be discussing today is nonverbal and verbal communications. So, I hope you enjoy. Okay? Now, you may be wondering what is verbal and nonverbal communication. I'm here to explain that to you. Um, Verbal and nonverbal, people might think that is different, or, you know, to be honest with you, there's more similarities to the two than you actually think. So I'm here to actually express that to you. So, introduction. Well, I like this quote, so I tend to use it. His name is Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he basically says, and I quote, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." Basically, he is saying actions speak louder than words. And when it comes down to nonverbal verbal communications, your actions and hand gestures and whatever are the meaning of getting your point across, believe it or not. You might think differently, we can have a debate about it, but that's what I think. So let's move on. We're gonna be talking about verbal communication, nonverbal communication, what's the similar between the two, and then we're gonna discuss what we learned throughout the three as a summary. Now we will first start with what is verbal communication. Verbal communication is when people communicate uses noises and words. As in right now I'm talking to you, even though my voice and what I'm saying is clear, I'm still using voices and words that's coming out of my mouth in order to communicate with you through YouTube. Another um, way to pinpoint verbal communication is a vocal way to explain values, opinions, and suggestions. As in, that's your way to get your point across. Simple. Um, Another one is considered to be the most effective way to communicate. Everybody speaks. These days, everybody turns to speak unless you have something happening to you as far as you lose your voice or your vocal cord messed up, you can't speak, etc. There's other ways to communicate. But talking and hearing people's voice and words are more effective way to communicate. Okay. There are several types of verbal communications. It's a long time going through it. It's really a lot of them, so I'm not going to go through all of it. But I will tell you that interpersonal verb receives and sends out other messages to other people. As in, if when we're communicating with our voice, I'm sending out a message. So if I say that there's a beautiful day outside and the other person is listening and they understand that I'm saying it's a nice day outside, they might agree with me. Like, yeah, it's a very nice day. That means they received my message that I said through my voice. One-on-one verbals and it's mostly always used in everyday life. We talk to people every day. We work with people every day. We enjoy our lives. We have fun. We meet new people by us speaking with one another. That is what verbal communication is. Now we will say, well, excuse me. Now we will be speaking on nonverbal communication. I will explain to you what it is. Nonverbal communication is communication using body language. As in, when I'm talking to you and you see my hands moving and my head moving and my eyes directly to my, I'm trying to make you understand not only with my voice but with my body and my body language, even though I'm sitting down. Communicating with eye contacts and facial expressions or gestures in that way. Um, Eye contact and facial expressions or gestures are really an easy way to understand your person's message because anybody can say anything. I can say cat, dog, bird, and I don't find anything interesting about cat, dog, bird. But if I'm saying something and my facial expressions or gestures are saying differently, like I'm really into that, then you can tell by just looking at my actions on my body. So let's move on. There are seven different types of nonverbal communication. There's seven. So if there's seven nonverbal, you know it's a lot of verbal. So we're just gonna skip that. Body language and facial expressions are important, very important to nonverbal communication. It is true because if you're not speaking with your voice, Your body is what captures the person to understand where you're coming from, your values. It's just everything. Like when you go to a job interview and a person could tell you're really serious about the job by looking at your facial expression and your body gestures. That's for example. Gestures help receivers understand values and cultures. For example, I gotta be quick. You speaking and just say that the person can't hear you, understands your voice. If you use gestures with your body, the sender will actually receive the message you're trying to say to them, which makes them understand where you're coming from. Like games like um I don't know the name of it. Like when you it's like gestures like you like Family Feud or something like that, but in a gesture type of way. That's the best way I can put it. Okay, now we're going to talk about the similarities between verbal and nonverbal communication. They both are symbolic, and they both of them may be intentional or unintentional. As in, it can happen at any moment. Like, um, your body language you might say voice wise, like you might say, "Oh, you look very nice today." Somebody might take it the wrong way, which is unintentional, or somebody be like, "Oh well, you look good in blue." That may be intentional. So there's a lot of ways. It could be with the voice. It could be with the body language. It can be intentional or unintentional. They're both are deeply rooted in cultural understanding, as in order for us to get our point across with not just your family members, your friends, foreigners, etc. Both are evolved mechanics through the course of time, as in the more you speak and use hand gestures, the better you will be able to speak with other people. Both are required for progressing in the need of balance. In order to communicate, you need the balance of nonverbal and verbal communication. As in, I'm doing right now. I'm speaking to you and I'm moving my hands around to make my point across. Hopefully, you understand what I'm trying to come from. Okay. Now we're gonna talk about the summary. Hand gestures is speaking in order to communicate with one another. You need hand gestures. Hello, how you doing? You look very nice today. You know, nice to meet you. Handshakes. Nice to meet you, etc. Shapes our interpersonal relationship, as in it does. But people can tell, by you speaking, like, okay, you're sincere with what you're saying, you're not sincere. So it really shapes up your relationships by using it more and more and more and more and more. It improves that effective communication and listeners. As in, you speak and then, you listen, you receive. It's like receiving messages back and forth. All right. The last thing before this thing is over, verbal and nonverbal may have differences and similarities, which we already explained. Humans use both to communicate. Well, you use both to communicate one another. Excuse me, which is true. Both are a formal way of communicating, which is also true because we always use hand gestures, and eye contact when we start having conversations with other people, strangers, family members, etc. Any questions? Feel free to ask any questions. I'll be happy to answer you. Um, Sorry, this is a little bit timely. I just want to say thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you next time. Have a great evening.